Hi, I'm Rachel, and this is my March 2021 book haul. I figured I'd start by showing you the book that I am definitely going to read next month, hence justifying the purchase. This is a poetry collection called The Glad Hand of God Points Backwards by Rachel Menis. I have a tradition of reading exactly one collection of poetry per year in honor of National Poetry Month, which is in April. And I went on quite the journey to find this book because it wasn't, classical literature that I could have perhaps dredged up. I decided to go to the National Jewish Book Awards, which for the last few years has been awarding collections of poetry, and this one was in fact a finalist in 2015. Basically, I figured I am so unfamiliar with poetry that I wanted to go for something that really spoke to me very specifically. So I figured I'd read from the flap to explain what this collection is about. In her first poetry collection, Rachel Menis chronicles a young woman's relationship with a complicated God, crafting a nuanced world that reckons with its past as much as it yearns for a new and different future. These poems celebrate ritual love and female sexuality. They bear witness to a dark history and introduce us to, and this is a quote, our God, the collector of stories and bodies, end quote. A force somehow responsible for both death and liberation. Here, Menis examines survival, assimilation, and intermarriage, subjects bound together by complex, if sometimes compromised, ties to the speaker's Judaism. Through wit and careful prosody, The Glad Hand of God Points Backwards lays bare the struggles and triumphs experienced through a teenage girl's coming of age, showing the reader what it means to become and remain a Jewish woman in America. So yeah, my first thought upon reading this description was, is there like an alternate me who is good at poetry who wrote this? Menis and I share a fair bit in common, it seems, including our first names, of course, our religious backgrounds, our national backgrounds, probably somewhat similar in terms of generation and even in terms of sexuality, I believe. I went on a little bit of a binge to find out a little more about her, and in fact her second collection of poetry should be coming out as a new book this April. And who knows, I guess if I like this collection well enough, maybe she'll be a poet that I could follow. That's exciting. I don't really follow many poets or any poets. But anyway, I'm really looking forward to this, and I will be reporting back on my thoughts. The second book I have to show you I will not be reading next month, although I did just showcase it in my last video, which was a TBR list for 2021 in science fiction and fantasy. The book is The Galaxy and the Ground Within by Becky Chambers, and it is the fourth and final book in her Wayfarers series. This is adult space opera science fiction. So I went ahead and ordered this book from Book Depository, which I have done with all the rest of the books in this series because the UK covers are so much prettier than the American ones. I pre-ordered this book aiming for the paperback because all of the rest of the books I own are in paperback. I wasn't really giving it much thought, but on Book Depository it said paperback and that it was coming out, I believe this came out in February. However, things kind of got weird almost immediately because I realized ultimately that it's not the paperback that came out in February, it was the hardback. And I figured with a sinking heart that since I specifically ordered the paperback, I would not be getting it probably until November of this year, which is when they said the paperback would be coming out. They did not say that when I was pre-ordering the book, but after the book came out, that's when I saw the November date. So I was like, alas, and I figured I just wouldn't be getting it. However, then Book Depository sent me the notice that they would be sending me the hardback. So I'm thrilled about it. I actually prefer hardbacks, and I certainly wanted to have this book to read before November. I'm hoping to read it for the Goodreads Choice Awards, after all. It also stands to reason now that all or most of my books in the Wayfarers collection are kind of different from each other. Here are the first three. The first book, A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, is a bit of a mass market paperback, I guess. And then the second two are both, I guess, the traditionally sized or paperbacks. And now I have a hardback to round everything out. That's just the way we're rolling here. Anyway, I am definitely looking forward to this book. I have obviously enjoyed all of this series. I'm kind of verklempt that it is coming to an end, although the stories are self-contained enough that I think if Chambers wanted to in the future, she could come back to the Wayfarers series. So I guess we'll have to wait and see, although it seems like for the moment she's going off in new direction. She has a new novella coming out, in fact, in July. That's more about robotics on Earth, I believe, so that's exciting. But in the meantime, I will be happily or nostalgically finishing off the Wayfarer series with this book, I believe, about 4 aliens who are stranded at a trucker stop in space, because why not? And finally, I have a library book, so of course it stands to reason that I'd want to read this relatively quickly. And at the moment, I still very much do. The book is Absalom Absalom by William Faulkner, and it is one of the books that is reaching the top of my Goodreads TBR, and hence falling into the purview of the books I want to strike out this year. I most recently, a few years ago, read Faulkner's As I Lay Dying, and didn't do too much for me, but I was a little loath to completely write off reading more of this author. And I decided specifically that my next go should be Absalom Absalom because it features a character who appears in his most famous work, The Sound and the Fury. I say it's his most famous work because it's the one I believe that is the most likely to be read in the classroom, and that's the last time I read The Sound and the Fury, so who knows, maybe I wouldn't love it so much as an adult, I don't know. But I will be giving this one a try. Or at least at the moment I intend to. The only thing that might bump this book from my April TBR is if my Jewish book club decides to read a book that's of interest to me. I have kind of let my Jewish book club fall to the wayside because I've had too many other reading obligations, and they weren't reading anything that specifically spoke to me, and I wasn't taking a risk on any of the other books that they were reading because I just have so much to read as it is. In fact, in April, I'm going to attempt to read 10 books. So basically, if I add another book to that reading list, I will have to dock one, and I've decided it has to be Absalom Absalom. And hopefully I'd be able to renew my library hold for a bit and get to it later on in the year. We'll see how things go. I will be reporting on my reading throughout the month in Friday Reads as usual. So that about covers it for me now. You can find links to these 3 books down below, as well as information about all of the other books and such that I mentioned. Kind of a busy weekend coming up as we round out March. Tomorrow night starts Passover, one of the biggest holidays on the Jewish calendar, and in fact I am going home to spend the first Seder with my family, and then the second Seder will be spent virtually with my synagogue, so there goes a big chunk of my weekend, although it should be a lot of fun, and it's a really introspective sort of holiday, I think. If you put your mind to it and extrapolate upon the themes. So I'll link to Passover information down below as well. Another thing I have to finish this weekend before a strict deadline on Sunday is my BookTube prize reading, where really at the very least I just have to get my Octafinals ballot out to Robert. I am a little past the halfway point in my final book right now. And I'm pretty sure, really, how I'm going to rank these books. I could go ahead and send that to him, but there's just that part of me that says, hey, you really should finish all of the books before you officially rank them for this prize where you're an official judge. So I'm holding off on doing the ranking, but that being said, I will definitely be having to send that off before Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern. And hopefully I will be finished with the book by then. We shall see. I will be back on this channel sometime before the end of the month to do a writing quarterly wrap-up video. So once this hectic weekend is over, maybe I can cram in a few goals before my deadline for that. We'll see. So anyway, I hope the rest of you have fun or productive weekends coming up ahead. Chag Sameach to everyone celebrating Passover. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. And I'll see you next time.